Hey everyone, today's History Shave topic is probably one of the coolest and most heart-rending topics I've ever covered. It is absolutely one of my favorites so far. I will be using Crowne And Crane-Frenchmen Street, and I will be talking about Mordechai Schlein, the 12-year-old partisan spy. Please stay tuned. John Bonham here, Cape Cod Wetshaving. Glad to be back. Another history shave, and boy, do I have a good one for you. All right, coffee of the day. JMC Cape Cod coffee. This is caramel, toffee, sweet vanilla cream. It's a seasonal, and it's utterly fantastic. If you ever see this, on the odd chance you have it in your area, definitely pick it up. I'm picky with flavored coffees, and that one doesn't taste fake or gross, so really, really good. All right. Let me go run through my software and hardware I'll be using. So the pre-shave I already have on. I use beard oils for pre-shave. I've done research and it's quite 50-50. Some people say it's bad, some good. I imagine it's okay. There's just probably stuff in it that's meant more for moisturizing than glide when it comes to shaving. But anyway, I've used it before. I don't see any problem with it. So I'm using bourbon vanilla Cremo beard oil for pre-shave oil. And it goes with Frenchmen St from Crowne And Crane. And the scent notes of this are pink pepper, tobacco leaf, rum, lemon, neroli, vanilla bean. That's why I use the bourbon vanilla along with the rum. So this is significant. I'll tell you why in just a second. I'm also using the balm with that. Hello, Liz. How are you, by the way? And I'm going to be using Bricktown Grooming Juan Hill because it's tobacco and vanilla. I haven't used one of their splashes on here in a while. How you doing, Phil? Very excited for this shave. It's going to be a good one. Hardware. Going to be using my Captain's Choice heavyweight copper bowl. One of my favorites. Beautiful bowl. Every Night Forge. Blackwood silver tip badger brush with that awesome coin. Literal coin. I don't know if I can get that without it being blurry. No? Ah, there we go. Good enough. And I will be using, I believe this is called, crap, I made a mental note to look it up before I started the video. I believe it's called the SR5. It's the new fine accoutrements safety razor that Cedric came out with. I cannot remember what he called it. I think it's either the DR5 or the SR5. Should have looked that up. And I'll be using the Bolzano Super Inoxidabile, I don't know what it's called. That, the Super Inox blades with that. So, okay. What was significant about the Frenchmen St is, so this is, Frenchmen St is a street in New Orleans. I've been on it, I've walked down it, I've been to Mardi Gras. Not a huge fan of it. I like Mardi Gras in Galveston, Texas way more. This was just noisy and dirty and gross. The entertaining part, however, was the end when the cops walked down. It's pretty cool. You have all these cops in the front, horses behind them, and a paddy wagon behind that. And they're clearing the street, and you just get to watch the idiots that don't get the hint. A lot of fun. Anywho, so Frenchmen St, it's meant more of a Mardi Gras nod. But the violin is significant, and the French are significant in the regard that there were French partisans, as we know, in World War II. The kid I'm talking about today was a Belarusian, I think it's Belarusian partisan, okay? So let me get to lather and I'll get into this. This is probably going to be a longer video. I decided to just, I'm going to go at a steady pace, but I'm not going to rush through it either. This topic needs to be a motion picture. I do not know why it is not a movie, let alone the fact that it was very hard for me to find a lot of stuff, like pictures and things like that. So the portrait on the video, for the thumbnail for the video, is not Mordechai. There's a kid named Simcha, but he played a big role in Mordecai's story. That's why he's on the cover. And another reason is there's only one photo of Mordechai that I could find. One. This kid just the crap that's coming out of Hollywood these days, and this didn't get picked up at all for a movie is just beyond me. It's almost insulting. This is one of the best stories I've ever heard. So let's get going, all right? Oh, it smells really good. Oh, really good one, Liz. Like all of them. Crowne and Crane has some great soaps. I like every one that I've ever tried so far. Okay, so Mordechai Schlein was born in 1930 in Belarus in a small town called Kamenkova. I know I'm not saying that right. There's going to be a lot of mispronunciations, I'm sure. I don't mean to. Belarus was at that time a very agrarian and heavily wooded country. If I remember my history correctly, Belarus fell under the Soviet bloc, but was not Soviet controlled yet. It did eventually have ties with Soviet Russia later in its history, but I believe during World War II it was not necessarily under Soviet control. But much of Soviet Russia at the time of the revolution that brought the Soviets into power, Russia was basically a peasant state. It was quite agrarian. 95% of the people lived off the land. So anyway, Mordechai was known as Motele to his village and to his peers. So that's really the name I'm going to be using the rest of this story is Motele. I believe it's Yiddish. I looked it up, what it means, and it just kept saying how to pronounce motel in Yiddish. And I was like, no, I doubt his name was Motel. Since he was very young, he had demonstrated a desire and profound gift for music, hence the violin and the music aspect of this. Okay. I added too much water right off the bat. I hate that. I got huge bubbles here. Not doing it justice. I hate when I do that. All right. When he was 8 years old, okay, so in his village, his tiny little village, there were only 2 Jewish families. There was him and the Gernsteins. So there was the Schleins and the Gernsteins. So when he was 8, he moved in with the Gernsteins, and they're the only other Jewish family in town. Because their older son, who was older than Motele, knew the violin and began teaching him how to play the violin. All right. Let me show you the lather here in a second. As soon as I hit the sweet spot here. So Nazi forces invaded Belarus on June 22nd in 1941. This is where it starts getting ugly. Some leather. They invaded June 22nd, 1941. They would eventually arrive in Kamenkova, his village, as they occupied the country. It's on thin, like always. I'm going to thicken it up. Like always, it really is. I really rush through during the videos to try to save for time, and I don't spend the time I need to try to get the lather perfect for the camera. That's all right. I'll thicken it up here. So when they arrived in his village, Motele's family were all herded up. His mother, his father, and his younger sister, Bashial. So his mom, his dad, and his sister would all be sent to Auschwitz. Okay? They would not survive. As so many did not. Even worse, if that's possible, the Gernstein family, who had taken him in, weren't even shipped off. They were massacred right there in their house by the Nazis. I don't know why they didn't ship them off. I don't know if they resisted or something happened. They made an example of them, but for whatever reason, the whole family was massacred right there in the house. While Motele hid upstairs in the attic. I don't know if the troops did not search the house or if he was in a crawl space or what happened, but in any case, Motele was not discovered by these Nazi troops. And he hid out and shivering, scared to death, poor kid, in the attic the rest of the day. Got some soap on my handle, I hate that. These get slippery, and that's not good. All right, so here's the one and only photo of Motele that I could find, okay? And there he is. The only photo of him that I could find. Handsome young man. I'm not sure how old he was when that photo was taken. I couldn't find it, or how old he was. But he would sneak out that night carrying the only possession that he had left, which was his violin. He was a terrified 12-year-old at that time, 11 or 12, living in the woods alone as best he could. Poor guy. There we go. Got the lather going. Still some bubbles in it, but as I mentioned, I got way too much water in it, so that was on me. Sorry, Liz, not a reflection of your soap. Just a big oopsie on me because I was rushing. Every time I rush, I don't do the lather justice. So I should either take my time or do it off camera and have it ready, which I don't like to do. Because I like, if it's a product I like, or if it's a product I'm using, I like to demonstrate its capabilities on the camera. And if I'm on the big screen, which it appears I am more often than not, you really get to see firsthand how I do business. So I try to do it right. Anywho, all right. He would eventually meet up with a partisan group also hiding in the woods. He was not the only Jew hiding from the Nazis. Far from it. Quick sip of coffee. He was lucky enough to come across a partisan group in the woods. It was led by a man named Moshe. I believe it's Moshe. So I'm going to say Moshe Gildenman. Okay? He and his son, Simcha, escaped a ghetto, and Simcha's the picture of the young man on the cover of this video. They escaped a ghetto in 1942, along with 16 other Jews. Okay? After arming themselves by attacking other Nazis, patrolling Nazis, their numbers had grown. So those two alone have their own story that is phenomenal, and it pains me to skip over it and just have one little snippet dedicated to them. These two were badasses, okay? You need to go Google this story because it will show you all of this. All of this needs to be more widely known. I don't know why it's not, but it is not. Simcha and his son did more than that. They actually only used 2 older World War I rifles and a butcher knife to escape this ghetto. It's incredible. Along with these other 16 that joined them. And they could have easily all been found and killed, obviously. First use with this blade, by the way. I forgot to mention that. And this is the first time I've used this razor on camera. I think it's only the second time I've ever used it, period. So after they had made their escape from this ghetto, because they were starting to liquidate it slowly, they were able to attack Nazi police. Not Gestapo, I don't believe. Just maybe some SD members, I'm not sure. Just said Nazi police, and they were able to arm themselves after that, and then it just slowly cascaded into full-on a rebellion. So these two were awesome. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Here's a photo of Moshe. He was a brave dude. This guy. And a badass, as you'll see. Because a lot of what we know now is because of him. But that was him. Okay? Bear with me. Motele was blonde and did not look like the stereotypical Jew. As such, Moshe asked him to go into town in Ukraine, and by now they were in Ukraine. They had moved there. They had moved to go and hide under the guise of being a beggar playing violin for money. So I forget the name of the town. I forget the. I start with an R. Rivian or something like that. See the scoop? I did a video for a razor company, a shave-in chat. And I was using my home razor, which is a solid stainless steel razor. And I took this big old scoop out of my cheek because I wasn't paying attention. And I pressed too hard. So ever since then, I've been really careful not to hit it. All right. Cedric did a great job with this razor. It looks open comb, but it's not quite. It's like he took his last one and just improved on it. Because I don't know what the official term of them call, or I call them the wiggle posts. The blade wiggle posts are longer, like a Fatip razor. The cap is different. Handle's the same. Length, even the weight, everything looks the same as the last one. But I love the bar, the way he did this. It's really cool. It's like it's oddly enough like a milder open comb, which I didn't know you could do. But anyway, so, and speaking of a blonde Jew, now it's really important. When I went to boot camp, we had one Jewish kid in our boot camp with us. His name was Baker, and he was blonde and blue-eyed. And they had religious services right there in Cape May, unless you were Jewish. If you were Jewish, you had to leave the base to go to temple. And he got to leave every Sunday and go to temple, and he'd rub it in our faces. You know, lovingly, like in a playful way, like, hey, I'm leaving, guys. Anyone wants some McDonald's? Anyone need anything? I'll have a beer for you. You know, he wasn't doing any of that. You'd get in huge trouble. They knew. Company commanders knew what was up. But it was just funny. He was a good kid. When we graduated, he and I, we had gotten really close. I wish we kept in touch. But he was one of the best dudes. He and I hit it off. Anyhow, sorry. So Moshe wanted him to hang out on the streets and play the violin like he was playing for money. Get this one spot. All right. Now, it worked, but interestingly, the ultimate goal was for simply to spy, just hang out on the street, see what he could see, report back. All right. The problem was that Motele was so damn good at the violin that he immediately attracted all kinds of attention from people. Like, people would actually stop in the street and gather around him and watch him play. Gifted kid. Okay? His playing was so beautiful and precise that he drew a crowd, and eventually he caught the attention of a Nazi officer who happened to be passing by. Now you're going to think, uh-oh, that's no good. It turned out to be the biggest bit of good luck that he could have hoped to have obtained. Because what happened was, this officer, I was going to say asked, demanded. Basically, he heard him play, said, holy cow, you're really good. There's a restaurant that is favored by the Nazis in the area. You're going to come to this restaurant, you're going to play violin for us. So, oh crap, I missed a picture. Here's a photo of these are actually some of the Belarusian partisans right here. I forgot to throw that in when I was talking about that he was blonde, because I started going off on a memory lane there. But that is a photo taken of some of the partisans. And the Nazi demanded that Motele play his violin at a local restaurant favored by the Nazis. The stroke of luck cannot be understated. All right? He now went from the street, hoping to hear things by chance, to the center of the hornet nest. Okay? He was now in a place where he would have full and unbridled access to the conversations of the Nazi elite of the area. The locals, the local Nazi elite. Here's a photo of the building that housed the restaurant. It is now considered a historic site. What follows, I'm not sure if this was rebuilt or if they just gutted it and were able to salvage the building itself. I think it's the latter, but I'm pretty sure it's the latter, but that is the building, okay? One day, Motele was taking a break in the restaurant cellar and noticed some large cracks in the building foundations. This is not a photo of those foundations. This is just a crack in a wall because I did not want a huge amount of time between photos. After relaying the information to Moshe, they hatched a bold plan. So he went to Moshe and said, hey, I was in the cellar. There's these big ass cracks in the wall of the foundation underneath the restaurant. So Moshe went, that's good to know. And they hatched a plan together. The Partisans and Motele. So this is the part that becomes utterly incredible and just badass. Motele went in one day and hid his violin in the cellar. He did not, however, hide his violin in the violin case. He left with his violin case. He left with the empty violin case. In the morning, he would carry the case in because he's basically reporting for work. He was showing up and he was going to play all day for the Nazis. Well, he brought his violin case in, but his violin was already in the restaurant, hidden in the cellar. Well, John, what was in the violin case then? Glad you asked. Ouch, I hid it because I already forgot. I'm already in the story. Inside his violin case that he brought in every morning, day after day after day, was dynamite. He would pack his almost said cigar case, his violin case to the brim with dynamite, sticks of dynamite. And he would find a way every day to go down into the cellar where he would both retrieve his violin and unload the dynamite into the cracks of the cellar walls. And he would fill one crack up with dynamite as much as he could till it was not able to be filled anymore. And then he would move on to the next crack and the next, and day after day after day. He always found a reason to go to the cellar where he would dynamite, grab the hidden violin. Did this day after day without being caught. I don't know how long he did it. He just did it long enough. But what a clever little boy. You would think after a week or 2 weeks, hey, I gotta go to the cellar again. Like, what are you doing down there? Are you peeing? Like, there has to be a reason, even if it was not innocuous, even if it was innocent. What are you doing down there? You think someone would go, dude, okay, show me what you're doing. Why do you keep going down there? At any moment, that could have happened too. Never happened. He was never found out. Eventually, Motele waited and bid and bought his time. So eventually he had filled all the cracks. The plan was in place. He just had to wait. Which he did. And he waited, and he waited, and he waited. Until one day, 200 SS troops, SS men, happened to be passing through the town. Over 200. Some numbers say over 100. I'm not sure if it's embellished or not, but a few sources. I had 4 sources for this story. 3 said over 200, 1 said 100. So I'm going to go ahead with the majority here. They stopped at the restaurant. Okay, so he played for these SS all day. Eventually, in the evening, he was told he could go home. You're done playing, go home. Motele said, okay, thank you very much. Picked up his violin case, went down into the cellar. There was a long fuse. He calmly lit this fuse, went back upstairs, walked out, and didn't look back. There's some rumors that he yelled something. I'm not going to yell. Starts with an H. 2 words, H and H. And it involves that. I'm not, if you know what I mean. For reasons of not being flagged or anything, I'm not going to say what that is. Also, the guy was a piece of shit, so I'm not going to say it because of that either. So, they say he said that as a joke. I'm sure they yelled it back. He got 200 meters away when kablooey occurred. Boom, 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 boom. That's not a picture, obviously. That's like looks like an apartment building. I don't know what that is. It's just a building blowing up, and it doesn't have couldn't find a copyright for it, so there you go. 200 meters away when the bomb detonated. I couldn't find an exact count, but most, it said, of the SS officers were killed in the explosion. Motele was never linked to the attack that historians are aware of. I'm sure there was an investigation. They did not like when people would resist them. In fact, like when Reinhard Heydrich was killed by Czech partisans, they burned down 2 entire villages, wiped them off the face of the earth. So I'm sure there was an investigation by Himmler and repercussions of some kind, but I could not find where historians ever found a way that Motele was linked. So, he continued fighting for the partisans after this. Again, nothing happened to him. He continued fighting. He became quite well known. Eventually, they would team up with the Soviet soldiers. So here's where the Soviets come into play. By then, Operation Barbarossa had commenced. And the Soviets were obviously fighting tooth and nail with the Nazis. And they would take all the help they could get, including from Belarusian partisans. During one battle with the Soviet soldiers, vicious battle, from what I read, with Nazi forces, Mordechai Motele Schlein was killed at the age of 14 years old. All right, this is where it gets really badass. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to talk about the soap. So all throughout this, I've been getting that tobacco. It's been very, very pleasant. It's been very slick. I've used Crowne And Crane on here before. It's one of my favorite artisans, hands down. It's in my top 5 easily, possibly my top 3. I know some people have had some things to say about it, which is whatever, you're entitled to your opinion. Just, I won't get into it, but they kind of got nitpicky for some stuff that's really silly to gripe about. Anyway, so if you've never tried Crowne And Crane, she has a vegan formula. She has a tallow formula. I'm pretty sure this is one of her tallow ones. Maybe not. This might be vegan. Nope, tallow. Okay. Hard to tell, see? She has a wonderful vegan formula. I was going to say even better tallow one. I just prefer tallow, but they're both really good. So give her a shot. In this case, I don't get a ton of the rum. I get a lot of the tobacco leaf, get a lot of the vanilla. I don't know what really pink pepper adds. If it's supposed to be a sweeter pepper, maybe. I've got pink pepper in a few. A little bit of the citrus. I think more than neroli than I get the lemon. So it's very, very pleasant, very nice scent. I like it a lot. So let me rinse my face. I look a bit like a kabuki, sitting here trying to talk about serious stuff. Do some skin food. There we go. That lather thickened up there. rinse this off. Be right back. All right. Wow, that's good. Post shave for that is really, really good. I think this razor is still for sale, $50. Get it. It's really good. It's really smooth, very smooth shaver. I like it a lot. I might have never used this before. I know it's the first time on camera. I thought this was the second time I used it, but I don't think I've ever used it. It's the first time I ever used it. I've had it a while too, so go figure. Very good razor. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the splash. So, Motele Schlein was killed at 14 years old. Moshe Gildenman survived. He would survive the war. He ended up unofficially inheriting Motele's violin. He kept it after Motele's death. I don't know if it was given to him or if he was by his side when he fell. I would imagine it's the latter one. Either way, he got his violin. He took it with him everywhere, even into battle. He would carry it with him into fights. He would not let it leave his side. After the war, he and his son, Simcha, damn it, there's a lot of names in here. Moshe, Simcha, I know I'm not saying that right. He and his son Simcha moved briefly to Paris. Frenchmen, see? They lived in Paris for a time, and then they would eventually move to Israel. By the time he made it to Israel, Moshe had become devout in the belief that Motele's story needed to be heard. Okay? Moshe unfortunately died in 1958. The violin then went to Simcha, and then eventually it went to Sefi, S-E-F-I, Sefi. His grandson Sefi was given the violin by Simcha, and by this time he knew the story. The story had been passed down, and Sefi was holding this old violin, this beat up old violin, and was like, this is the most incredible thing I've ever heard. This deserves to be heard more, just like Moshe had said. And he decided he wanted to restore the violin. By this time in Israel, there's a lot of Holocaust stuff, obviously, in Israel, but there's actually a, I forget what it's called, there's a section of Holocaust survivors and victims with music and violins in particular. And so he decided, I want this to be told and maybe possibly given to this museum or whatever it was. So he contacted a man. God, this smells good. I'm trying to talk and smell my hands at the same time. Phil, that's killer, man. San Juan Hill. If you've never tried it. This pure tobacco and vanilla badassery. He contacted a man named Amnon Weinstein, who then agreed to restore it. Once he heard the story, he was like, that's incredible. Here's a photo of Amnon with the restored violin of Motele. Okay, I don't know if you can tell in the background, but I think the guy does do violins quite well. Either that or those are some Pier 1 import light fixtures. Rest in peace, Pier 1. They went under. I don't know if you knew that. I just learned that recently. So that violin was restored by him. Okay. Now, this needs to be a movie, I'm telling you. In 2008, for the first time in decades, Motele's violin was played by a teenager named David Strongen. I think that's how I say it. He would play Hatikva, which is Israel's national anthem. And this is a real photo of David playing Motele's violin. Okay? Now, that violin, if you're on Instagram and you saw that photo, that's his violin. That's the restored violin. That was the violin that David was playing. Here's a photo. Bam. The same one that's on Instagram. This is the violin that belonged to Motele, the very one he used when he was in that restaurant plotting. Okay? So, how sick is that? If it weren't for just a group of people, handfuls of people, we would have never heard of this kid. 14. And he did this when he was 12. He died when he was 14, but he did all this awesome stuff when he was 12 years old. Killed his family. And he got him back, didn't he? It was also said that after the bombing, he met up with the partisans again. And he was said to have claimed that he did that for his family. I don't think it really needed to have been said. And he did it for, several families, but I got so caught up in this story. And it was by sheer chance that I happened across it. I forget how I even found it. And once I read it, I was dumbfounded that I'd never heard of this before. Mr. Spielberg, you need to get on this one. You did such a good job with Schindler's List. Not just that it was a good story and a good movie, but I love that Spielberg went in the direction of a good Nazi. That really shows historic continuity. I mean, obviously it was a movie, there's some stuff tweaked. Like, for instance, I don't know if you knew Ben Kingsley's character was actually 3 different guys rolled into one, just for the movie, but this needs to be told. This would be a badass movie. There is one short film called Nakam, Nakam. It looks foreign. I didn't watch it. It's a short film. But I don't know if it's based on this or is an exact a film based exactly on his life. I didn't watch it. I didn't look for it. I plan to. But you can go look that up. Again, go Google this kid. It's utterly incredible. And I wish like hell more people knew it. So, all right, that'll do it. If you are a big fan of sweet tobacco, vanilla awesomeness, give Frenchmen Street a try. The rum, I think, with the balm is a little more prevalent. Oh man, that's good. It smells really damn good. And it's really, the sweeter scents I lean towards for autumn and winter. This would be a really good cooler weather scent, in my opinion, even though it's meant, for Mardi Gras and all that. Dude, I don't even remember when Mardi Gras is. I used to go all the time. I can't remember. It's in Texas, so it was always warm because I would always go to Galveston, or even if I went to New Orleans. All right, that'll do it. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this one. I really implore you to go look up some stuff about this. It's just absolutely incredible, and it's something that's, like I've said a billion times, not really known, and that bothers me. So, hope you enjoyed this one. Sorry it's been so long. I do have a request for the next 2. The next one will be a request from my buddy Ethan at the Shave Mercantile. How you doing, man? And I looked into that one, and that one's sick too. So thanks, buddy. I can't wait to do that one. And then the one after was from my buddy Ben. So at the Swamp Thing. How you doing, Ben? Hope you're being safe. So keep an eye out for those. It's not going to be 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks in between. I'm going to start. So my kids are back to school now, so it'll be easier for me. All right. Thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. Take care. Happy shaving, everyone. Enjoy the last little itty bitty snippets of summer. Till next time. See you.